In relation to this morning's paper 2 in Irish, it certainly would have thrown up an awful lot of surprises, as it did surprise me. I think the greatest obstacle a student will have had this morning was trying to overcome their nerve, that when they opened the paper, calm down. Yes, there were surprises, areas that were widely anticipated didn't feature, but in the cool out of day, if you sit down and go through them, the questions were very, very doable and accessible. Many students would have been banking in relation to question 2 on the story on Gno Rud, and many would have been surprised in relation to Usheen and Tiernan Og. The questions on Usheen were very straightforward, but one thing would concern me. Students were asked to answer 2 out of the 3, and it was the one question on the paper where they didn't actually state how many marks would be going. So I presume, irrespective of whichever 2, would have had 15 marks each. But that wasn't stated on the paper, just as an overall total of 30. In relation then to the poetry section, again, students would have been widely anticipating the poem Gavin. It was the only poem that hadn't featured to date in the current cycle. They got on Tarakir, the last time that was asked would have been 2012. Again, the question was very, very doable, asked for the main theme, a feeling. In relation to question 3, a lovely question in my opinion was based on the adjectives. Now that is something that would have to have been studied by the students and prepared. They would have found that very challenging had they not prepared it in their class. In relation to question 4, Queen Arthalera was hotly tipped, and I'm glad to say it did feature. It was a major part of the course. Questions were very nice. They were very similar to those asked recently on mock papers. I think, as I said at the very, very beginning, it was the shock that students would have to overcome today. That was the only area of the shock. Once they kept their cool, I'm sure when they sit down tonight and read back the paper, it would have been fine. In relation to An Triail, one area in An Triail, the question would have been very broad and very, very long. So I hope if students did pick An Triail that they were very rigid in relation to their timing. It would have been a question that could have caused you to write for maybe over an hour, and that is something I would have worried about. But all in all, a good paper, a fine paper, albeit surprising.